Now looking at the clock, why don't we move back to our budget hearing? We're a little bit behind schedule. And so we'll begin with the budget hearing. And at this time, we'll hear any public comment or input after we first hear from Tracy.
People in the back are saying they can't hear.
What was that?
People in the back are saying they can't hear.
With everything that's been submitted currently right now, we're sitting in the general fund $121,228 over the reserve requirement. There are a few items that still need to be decided. There are a few changes from the budget workshop to here. Retiree healthcare did notify us that there is a change in the match percentage. There's a change in the employee contribution and a change in the match percentage to retiree healthcare. So that's moving from 1.834% to 2%. So that's reflected in this budget you have before you. I did put the elected officials that are coming into office. I put their salaries in at the max. It's a split, 6 months at one rate, 6 months at the increased rate. And we did get the grant, get more solid grant totals from the grant departments, and we did get the fire allotment monies actually just came in yesterday, so we got those final totals. The one thing that was still left up at the air after the budget workshop was the deputies to the elected officials.
Can I comment on that before you go forward? So, I always think out loud at the table, and then afterwards I get a lot of upset people calling me, but I guess I was really happy that it happened because it helped clarify to me the deputies' salaries. And to the sheriff's credit, he's not here tonight. I was asking him, as an elected official, because we don't have, deputies, so I didn't have a frame of reference to, refer to. And I asked him, if you were not a sitting elected official and you were already termed out and you had to make this decision, how would you feel about having to make that decision? Do you feel that the 98% is enough? Is it too much, too little? And he said, well, and then I also said, if there's a good sheriff in place or not a good sheriff in place, do you think that makes a difference? And his response was, really, as a deputy, it's not as fancy as a title, but sometimes it can be more responsibility if the actual elected official doesn't complete their term, or if they just come in once a month, or whatever the statuted time is that they have to be in the office. And so I really thought that through, and I thought even, I believe it was in the treasurer's office before, when the staff kind of had to step up in the absence of the assessor, then, they did take on a big load of that responsibility. So as far as I'm concerned, I would certainly support the 98% for the deputies. But I'm glad that I got to talk to everyone and kind of understand why they felt like that was a good percentage, and also how it came about. And Linda really helped to educate me on that as well. So I don't know if you guys talked to anyone, but I did, and I'm in support of the deputies going to the 98%. So I just wanted to comment on that. So, does anybody else want to go, or do we want to go forward?
Tracy, have you done an impact of what this is going to actually cost us in the long run if we do the 98%?
I did. There's and it's going to take effect over the course of like I said, in this fiscal year, for instance, because the terms start January 1. We kind of ease into it, but at the end of, by 2013, 2014, then it continues on, because in the next election, there are 5 elected officials coming in, and the sheriff has 2 appointed by statute. So those are things that I took into consideration, and just figuring the numbers based on the salary and the increase and the difference in what we're paying now, and the difference in FICA, para, and retiree health care. which is still iffy because elected officials don't have to pay into para or retiree health care. They can opt out of that. So this is just a guess if everybody selected that. In the impact in this budget cycle, if we left the deputies at 98% and the elected officials at the max, the impact to the budget is $46,524. In the next election, the impact is $74,770. And the total impact overall is $121,302. And I don't really see us moving classification anytime in the near future again, so that is the max until classification changes again.
So 2013, 2014 was the 46,524?
The current budget that we're going into is the 46,000. The next budget, because there's 5 elected offices up for election at that time, is the 74.
Do you have that on the spreadsheet so we can see it? Because I think that makes a big difference because, I mean, I understand that, people haven't had a raise in a while and it's good. You guys work very hard and we appreciate everything that you do. But in the long term, we need to see exactly what's happening in the long term of that money that needs to be there.
The other thing to remember, elected officials can only receive pay increases at the start of their term, and that is locked for 4 years. The deputy position is not set by statute. That one can change if that ever comes up again. That's not set by statute, but the elected is. And when DFA goes through our budget for certification, that's one of the things that they look at to make sure that we don't have an elected official slated to be paid more than the statute allows based on our classification.
We also, Madam Chair and Tracy, you also did research with the other counties as to how they treated their deputies, correct?
Right, and nobody, there wasn't a consistent answer. Some are at a set hourly rate, some are at 80%, some are at 95%, some are at 98%, some are at 100%. The deputies make the same as the elected. It's kind of whatever that county chooses to do.
What is the percentage of, okay, the new classification, and if the deputies stay at the salary that they're at, what's that percentage? Because it would no longer be 98, what would it be?
If they stayed where they're at,
Yeah.
when they elected them to the maps, I think I figured that today, I think it's 83.
83%.
That's what I was gonna guess, is probably some of my meetings.
Okay, so we're at the table now for discussion on this item. Continued discussion, what do you feel, Commissioner Clark?
An elected official, the salaries are set by the state, and as Tracy had said that, this may happen every 8 to 12 to 16 years, depending on if we can't get upgraded or depending if the state does upgrade the salaries. For a deputy to only make 2% less than an elected official, and the elected official carries the responsibilities. They're the one that the public is going to scream at if something is wrong. And, it's easy to say, well, you need to talk to my boss. Well, elected official doesn't have that way out. So I think just 2% difference in the salaries, it needs to be greater than that.
Okay. Do you have a recommendation as to what you think would be fair?
Well, if you look at what we're going to be raising as far as dollar amounts instead of the percentage, I was thinking that deputies would receive anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 more per year, which is going to be a considerable amount more than our 3% that we've talked about for the remainder of the employees. So even at 90 to 95%, somewhere in between that, is still a substantial raise.
Okay.
And I realize that they have a substantial responsibilities in the absence of the elected official. But I think we need to consider in the long term what our budgets are going to reflect.
So are you saying 90% for the deputies?
I would say 92.5%.
Well, I know that we do have some elected officials in the audience. Would you like to comment on this at all? Absolutely.
Madam Chair and all commissioners, I am support on a raise for our deputies. In our county, the elected officials do work more than one day a month. You know, we are here. But we do depend on our deputies for the volume of work and everything that has increased in the many years that I've been here. We depend a lot on our deputies. It was in 2007 that Linda Kaiser and James Hall, because I was a deputy, went about and called all the counties to find out what they were doing with their deputies. And that's where it was approved to go that high to 98%, because all the other deputies in other counties were getting paid way more. I can tell you that I was getting paid very little at that time as a deputy, and I never did get the increase because I left in between that time. But there was employees in the county clerks that were making more than the deputy was, and that's why Linda Kaiser and James Hall went about trying to get deputies an increase. We are, at the time, of course, and all deputies are under the elected officials, so, I mean, you can lose your job in a day. But the responsibilities that they have, through Torrance County even, they fill out a timesheet every month, but yet their salary. And I know that the county has to keep track of, you know, for their annual leave, their sick leave, and all this, but nobody ever has a timesheet on how many hours they work. And they can work just as much as the elected officials sometimes in hours a day, especially like in my office for taxes. I mean, I've had Janice in there for 13, 14 hours in one day. I mean, nobody ever sees how many hours they work. They only keep track of how many hours you take off. You know, I only want to know when you're gone. I only want to know when you're on sick leave. I only want to know when you're on annual leave. But I could care less how much hours you're putting in. And they do put in a lot of hours. I also believe that our deputies, right now, the 2 deputies that would be coming in January, which would be Janice Varela for me and Linda Kaiser, are very qualified to do that position. And that's why I say an increase of some kind. They need to have some type of increase. I'm not saying that they got to be paid as much as the elected official, but they do deserve some type of increase because they work very hard. They're qualified, they're honest, and with their help, that's why the county is where we are now. And they're also future candidates. I know I've heard many comments in our county from employees that elected officials and deputies, you know, where, you know, they're always getting what they want, whatever. You work for county government, you work for state government, you work for federal, municipality, it doesn't matter who you work for, you are working for elected officials no matter what, and you are working with public money. So even though you say, I don't get involved in politics, I don't get involved in public money, but you are involved because you're getting paid by public funds. And so if you're a clerk or you're an elected official, we're still working for the public and we're still involved in politics, whether we like it or not. And I think that my deputies need, you know, my deputy and the other deputies need a little more recognition for all the work that they do. Like I said, I know it's in your hands, and you guys do have someone appointed also because you appoint your manager. We appoint our deputy. And, you know, they do deserve the credit for all the work that they do.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Dorothy, I agree with you that they do need a raise, but if my calculations are correct, even at 92.5%, it's a substantial raise.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying.
Because we're going off what the elected officials would
And
have.
exactly, that's what I'm saying, you know, if you calculate, like you said, it would come down to 80-some% if they stayed at the salary that they are. We'd be going back to the problem that we had back in 2007 and many years before where the deputies. The other thing is they do not get increases. Maybe other counties do, but our deputies only have gotten an increase when the elected official gets an increase. Now, if you guys were giving them an increase every time the employees got an increase, that's how come my salary at the time that I was deputy was so low, was because I never got an increase. But employees at the time were getting increases, and the deputy always stays behind. They never got it. And so before you know it, you got clerks in the other offices that are making way more than the deputy is. And they have more responsibility because if I was to have an accident tomorrow, she will be responsible for everything that I'm doing in my office. And I know that she's qualified and she can take that office and take over and do a good job. And that's what I'm saying. Give our deputies credit for what they do.
Yeah.
Dorothy. Did anyone else want to speak on this matter before we move on? Okay, so Commissioner Anthony, oh, Tracy, okay, sorry. I'm sorry, you said 92.5%, Commissioner Freiberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Tapia, do you have any response to that percentage?
Can we just double check that to make sure Mr. Pryor is right? Not that I don't question your judgment, I just making sure the math is okay.
Well, I think it's pretty good. I just figured that, I've said it averages between $400 and $4,500 a year at 92.5%, which is over a 10% raise.
I have a question.
You'll need to come to the table just a minute. I mean, to the podium, sorry.
What it takes two of them.
We know you always ask like you come up with a number just like right there at the table, but we know you've been working on this one. So let's just go double checking.
Okay. We always use the word approximately.
That's why we're checking. We want you to be approximately right.
And I know Linda, I don't know if you got in touch with you guys, but she mailed me a letter talking about it.
She did also.
Is that a help? I guess I got the short chair today.
I don't know. I think so.
We're working on the chair and we're just actually going through the numbers. Why don't we take a 5-minute recess if everyone doesn't mind? Thank you. I didn't see the request from the city of Moriarty, but could you explain it to us? Or is there a letter?
Commissioner Pryor got me a letter. It's right here. I didn't know you know a copy. I can certainly make a copy.
Maybe, could we just have it read into the record so we can have it read again?
Not urgent. Moriarty Summer Recreation Program in Moriarty, New Mexico, to whom it may concern. I, Pam Bibiano, am writing to you on behalf of the City of Moriarty Summer Recreation Program, an organization that provides a summer program for not only community kids, but a program that reaches out to our entire county. We estimate that there are 60 children within our community and county that are very passionate about a program. This program provides weekly field trips, talent shows, a carnival, scavenger hunts, water day, relay races, movies, group activities, arts, and crafts. New to our program this year, we are now providing a new reading program brought to us by Moriarty High School Honor Society students called Book Buddies, which helps promote reading skills for the youth within our program. We are also now including this year mini basketball camps, which are provided by Moriarty High School boys basketball team. There will be many more projects and activities along the 5-week course. Provided by the summer lunch program, the children are receiving hot breakfast and lunch every day for the entire program. My staff and I are very excited in helping to continue to keep this program a great success annually, but we need your help. Your monetary donation would help us attain a goal we have set for ourselves to make this program run efficiently. With your donation, we will use it to employ youth workers as well as adults, which is a huge goal of ours. We are very passionate about getting the county and communities youth started on gaining their own personal work experience. Within the summer recreation program, we not only supply the students attending the program with new opportunities, we also make sure we supply our youth employees with knowledge that will help them in future jobs. They learn work skills on leadership and mentoring roles, learning how to fill out timesheets and how to appropriate time management. I would like to thank you for taking time to consider helping our program raise funds for our future and continued success. Thank you, Pam Bibiano. So there's no monetary request, just a request for a donation.
And what was the request? Can you repeat the request from the town of Estancia, the dollar amount?
They requested $15,000 to support the pool operations. I'm looking for the mayor and I don't see him.
He's back in the back.
Okay. And I'm very sorry, and just want to apologize to George. I know you had a question, and if it was in regards to the deputy salaries, if you'd like to come up and speak, I didn't mean to not.
Oh, I
ask you
just want to
come up.
tell everybody that you were coming back. So yeah, I mean, I would like to.
Okay, if you want to come up, go ahead.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Well, it's okay. I wasn't here. It's my fault. For your record, Dwayne Hewitt, Mountaineer, the question I really kind of have is, and I understand this is a one-year cycle that you're looking at budget-wise, and I really hope that you're going to take a little step back before you go forward with the electeds raises in general, only because of this. If you look at the increases that are coming in our taxation, thanks to, frankly, Obamacare, there's been massive amounts of legislation that's been humped through on the federal level that's going to trickle right down here. If our federal level doesn't get its poop in a pile, if you will, and they don't balance that budget, we have automatic cuts that are coming. That's going to trickle right down here. All of us that live out here, it's costing us more and more to live. And what that's doing in our county, Tracy said it before at meetings, our gross receipts are going down. And that's going to continue to happen. So I'm not saying there shouldn't be raises. I'm saying that it should be very, very carefully considered. You're looking at one budget cycle now. What happens in 2 years if our economy doesn't improve? To me, that's a huge concern. It's a very huge concern. We don't have economic development knocking on our door to bring in jobs. We don't have money coming in from the state level. I sit in these meetings and I hear it all the time. This may not come from the state. That may not come from the state. Overall, financially, our country's in a lot of trouble, and it does trickle from the top down. And when it comes down to our level, us little guys, shopping-wise, do we shop here? No, we go to Walmart and Berlin, and our gross receipts go there because we can afford products there less expensive. More shopping in one spot, and we're back home. So I'm not opposed to raises by any means. I'm really not. But as far as for the elected levels, to even push it all the way to the maximum at this point in time, given the current parameters with our economy as a nation, until that stabilizes, in my opinion, I think that would be a really bad decision, unless if you folks decide to do that. Next year, everything's in the toilet, and you're looking, here's your income, here's your expenses, and it's not just wages. Everything's going to cost us more. Fuel's going to cost more, materials are going to cost more, insurance is going to cost more. Everything that's being pushed by the upcoming tax increases is going to cost us more everywhere you look. So your expenses are going to go way up here that you're going to be responsible for, and payroll is just a part of that, and your income is going to drop because people won't have the money to buy things here to generate a lot of the money that funds the county, which is gross receipts tax. So all I'm saying is, if you're going to do raises for anybody, please be very, very, very conscious of how bad our economy really, really is, and take that into consideration. I think everybody in this building works. They work very hard, and I think they deserve everything that they can get. But if you do that and everything goes in the toilet, are you going to come back to all of us, please, we need more money? You're planning on doing that with a road tax right now. And even if you consider that position, you're going to ask for a road tax. If the county's flush with cash now, and you can jack the elected salaries up to the maximum right now, then you're going to come back in January, February, March of next year and say, well, we need you to give us more money to fix these roads. It doesn't make sense. To somebody in the public, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'm just saying, for me as an individual, I hope that you really seriously consider all of the ramifications of every dollar that you're planning on increasing, every award you're going to give to another community. It's all very important, and until our country stabilizes financially, we're a little tiny piece of sand in the big wheels of the economy. And, we're going to get dumped in the ditch if we aren't careful. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, George. Michael? Please do.
Seems to me that, my name is Michael Beatty. It seems to me that the salary problem seems to work all down to the lowest people. As Freiberger told me, there's a 3% increase for the people at the bottom, which hardly keeps, if it does it all with inflation. And then you turn around, in the case of the election officials, in the case of the commissioners, I believe, if you're going from 16 to 22,000, is that correct?
Is what?
Are you going from 16,000 to 22,000? For the commissioners?
Yes, the next
That
commissioner,
comes
yes,
out to a
commissioner.
30 what percent? Between 30 and 40% increase in your salary? And you're giving a 3% increase for the people who are making $9 an hour? I'm not saying that you don't deserve a salary increase, but things aren't nice right now, and it seems like you're putting the short end of the stick with the people at the bottom. You've got to remember that when you pass this, you are putting the short end of the stick to the people at the bottom.
Thank you, Michael. Mr. Lopez?
Rick Lopez from Tejica, New Mexico. Madam Chair, Commissioners, to bring in quality people to do the job, to bring in this revenue, to advance this county, we have to bring in a level of salary that's going to attract these folks.
The staff, yes.
I am 100% in favor of beefing the pay raises for the county employees, for the road department, for the clerks, for the maintenance folks, and I understand all of that. But the issue at hand here is we have qualified, certified deputies running these departments. And I wholeheartedly back this percentage, that we start getting in line with the rest of the counties in New Mexico. There is, I understand the concerns that Mrs. Hewitt has brought up in reference to if the economy tanks or if it improves. You will have an opportunity next year to readdress this issue, to say, folks, we tried it for a year at 92.5. The budget is tanking. We're going to have to lower it back to the lower levels. And that's a reality that I think these deputies are willing to accept. But to bring in qualified people at this level of expertise, and to get them certified to the level that they need to be, we need to pay these folks. And I stand behind Mr. Freiberger's assessment and raise on this issue. To bring qualified people, we need to bring these wages up, and it has to start somewhere. So I endorse Mr. Freiberger. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else before we go back to the request from the town of Estancia and the city of Moriate? Okay. All right, Tracy, if you'll come back up. So the town of Estancia's request was $15,000 fiscal support for the swimming pool, and the city of Moriarty for their youth program. Also, we don't have a number requested from them, but the town of Estancia was 15.
I believe so.
Okay, so why don't we have discussion on those two items at the table?
Well, in light of I mean, to me, the county needs to support the entities here. At 15,000, I was wondering if, I know Ted works with Ted and Moriarty, would you be willing to split it? And half of it go to Moriarty and half of it go to the swimming pool?
If I may approach. Said about it on there. In response to your comment, Lonnie, Commissioner, sorry. I can appreciate your request, I guess. I guess my question back to you would be is that I feel that I did my homework and I brought you numbers. In fact, since our last meeting, I started to document and we started to ask where people are from so that we could have a better understanding of who we serve. We serve less than 30% of people from Estancia. All the other numbers, the other 60-some%, either come from countywide. We typically have numbers from, and this is individuals, not percentages, but in excess of 40 people per day coming from the Moriarty and Edgewood area. So I guess I would kindly request that you guys ask the same of some of these other programs, because you know what, I know what this program is costing the town of Estancia, and we're trying to serve, like I said before, it's not an Estancia project, it really is a community project. So, and you're right, Ted and I work great together. We work hand in hand in a lot of things. And I have no problem at all, because you know what, it is a community effort. It's about helping the youth in our community. It's about reducing those crime rates and just misdemeanors, things like that. And I think these programs actually help do that. I've got two of my guards are actually from Moriarty. They're Moriarty students. But you know what? It's not about Estancia. I try not to draw the line nowhere, because it's about an entire community. That's what helps our area. And that's why I'm coming to the county, because you know what? The county encompasses us all. But I stand for any other questions.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
So the current, this is to my fellow commissioners, the current youth program that's offered by the city of Moriarty, how is it currently being funded, and do you know how long it's been in existence? And
It's held every summer, is my understanding, and it comes out of the city operating budget. I know they were expecting 50 to 60, and they wound up with about 100 kids that are actually attending it.
okay. Commissioner Tapia, I know this is in your district also, so.
Well, I have a problem with this letter because they kind of just threw it out there and didn't give us a dollar amount. And that's, I don't know, if you're asking for something, you need to be a little more specific of what you're wanting. The other thing to that is, you you know, we need to see numbers, we need to see what they're doing, we need to see what they're pulling and what it's impacting. I am all for support of giving the town of Estancia money for the pool. I think it's a huge asset. Once again, we can't put a dollar amount on keeping kids out of trouble, because we're gonna pay at some point if they have nothing to do and get in trouble. So, I'm in support of funding some money. Once again, I'm torn, because you know what, we don't know what tomorrow's gonna bring, and as much as I'd like to sit up here and be the nice guy and give money to everybody, you gotta look at it realistically too, so, we need to take into consideration the amounts that we're giving.
If I may,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm still you know, I appreciate that, Leanne, because, you know what, I don't think that Moriarty just should be disqualified. I'm not sitting here saying that. I don't want that message, I don't want that to be misunderstood. Is that, you know what, and I understand the distributions. I mean, I work through the same struggles, and that's why I'm here. Because the town had to carefully consider this year, because of our small cities assistance being reduced by $30,000 this year. You know what, I didn't know if I could run the pool. We've made some changes. We've been fortunate to actually have to go to full guards on 4 different days because we had over 220 kids. And that's a lot of kids to get off the street and keep them busy. But, you know, in all fairness to Moriarty, I think it would also be fair to just straight up ask them. You know, if it requires more time, we've got time. We're almost approaching the end of our season, and if this needs to be tabled, I don't know what your all situation is, but I'm not standing here being selfish either. You know what, ask the information that you guys need.
No, and I mean, if it was misunderstood that we would disregard them, for me, if somebody's gonna come and stand before us and ask, it just makes it a little bit more, easier to be able to give money, because you have come and you've given us numbers, you've given us figures, you've given us something to work off of.
Justification.
And it makes it easier for us to then make that decision to say, yes, this is something that we need to look into. Like I said, I mean, I don't know how long the program is, how many kids, what they're doing, what their budget is. Those are things that I would like to see before I make a decision. So no, I'm not disregarding them.
And the only reason I stated it that way was because of Commissioner Freiberger's proposal of splitting it. It's like, you know, if they've got a sustainable program, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say, you know what, I got to have my 15,000. That's not what I'm saying at all. You know what, it's all about the kids and our communities as a whole.
And I agree, and Mayor, it wasn't anything to try to take away. I guess maybe I just tried to simplify it. And, you know, my other choice was flip a coin. So,
Either way, somebody
either way.
Well, then I was gonna say, if you wanna split it in half, what about Willard and Mount Air? So it just makes it, you know, there's always people that need assistance, and it's hard. So I think that we are all in agreement that we do need some more justification from the city of Moriarty and give them the opportunity to submit that. But also in giving them that time, we are also opening up ourselves to other municipalities that may want to submit a request to us as well. So I guess we'll see what happens. But I did also want, if we're going to go that route and ask, you know, for the city of Moriarty to justify, I think it would be fair also for whoever does come to ask us for dollars, what dollars are they appropriating outside of their municipality? Like, you know, we as the county, are fortunate to be able to write a check outside of county government activities or whatever I'm trying to say. But like, does the town support anything other than just town business that you guys are supporting outside of what your regular budget requirements are? And I don't know if the city of Moriarty would have any of those type of deals as well.
I don't know that I completely understand your question. Is that
Like, are you supporting, I'll just make something up, say an organization, maybe the Read Write Literacy, if they went to the town of Estancia and said, would you guys make a contribution to our program? And I'm just making that up. Would you guys consider that? Because then it's kind of hard. If you're writing a check to someone else and then you're asking us for a check, are there any organizations that have come to you that you've considered?
Well, and if you all recall, at your last meeting, or whenever I came the last time to present to you all, TOPS was also here. And yeah, the town actually contributes to that program. And we provide them space. We absorb the utilities, we absorb the computer use that they have, we absorb the internet. The town absorbs that. We provide them with a full gymnasium sometimes. Some of the others is the elderly program.
Enchantment Legacy.
Enchantment Legacy. I mean,
Yeah, a lot of in-kind support
we,
to them.
we do provide some in-kind support. Granted, they have some funding that they get supported from on the state level, but we do provide that. The
Okay.
county, I mean, we help out at the fairgrounds is probably a great example, is that, we had several loads of water that were recently used for the bull riding. You know what, the town doesn't get reimbursed for that stuff. We go out there and mow the weeds, to make it presentable so that it can be leased. Because, whenever you lease it out, some of those things aren't very presentable.
You make a good point, Mayor.
I mean,
There is
I-
a lot of collaboration and partnership already in existence with that.
And I can go on and on. I mean, the schools, we plow the parking lots at the schools whenever it snows. There's lots of things that I think it's a partnership. However, in-kind services sometimes just doesn't work, because it's not like if I can come to the county and say, okay, how many lifeguard certified people do you have that might be able to help us out at the pool to guard?
That's a good point. Okay.
Madam Chair, I will say that I know Mayor Barella and Mayor Hart have both worked hand in hand, have gone to Santa Fe to petition the governor's office, and it wasn't for Estancia, and it wasn't for Moriarty, it was for the community, as Ted relayed, that this is all for the community. I know Moriarty supports the literacy program there by Nachos, and they contribute considerable amount. And they also, plow. When you're talking about a small community, it's like they were saying, it takes a village to raise a child, and it does. It takes a village to work everybody together to where we can get through these hard economic times.
Agreed, and if anyone's been a champion for regionalization, I know that's always been your passion, Mayor, to work for everybody's good. So I think we know where we stand with the city of Moriarty. We certainly do not have enough information to consider their request. But let's talk about numbers, Tracy, as far as that $15,000 request. Where would that come from? Is it available? How much of a strain would it put on the budget?
Well, I went ahead and put the 92.5% in, and as you can see, the amount over reserve dropped from 121 down to 113,000. Any fiscal support that comes from the commission comes from the general fund. So it would have to be earmarked somewhere in the commission's budget for that. And I don't know if there's anything else that, between the budget workshop and now that's come up, that any other considerations that the commission has that they want to consider in this budget. Those are the only items that I know of.
Okay. Mayor Burley, you did say that this is not something that needs to be decided tonight.
I'm sorry.
Okay, and we still have one more where we have to adopt the final budget to where,
It's on the agenda for tonight. This budget has to be to Santa Fe next week in DFA's format, so I need a little bit of lead time to convert it. An option that's available, because we do have the 113 sitting out there, you can budget it into the commission budget, into the capital outlay line items. If you choose to move it to another spot to give it as fiscal assistance or whatever other projects come up within the county, that is your decision. As we increase expenditures though, the reserve requirement goes up. So just because it says we're 113,000 over doesn't mean we actually have 113,000. Because as we add to those expenditures, the reserve requirement goes up.
well, I hate for the mayor to leave tonight without a number because I just certainly have a passion for that particular project because my daughter wants to be there every day and my son wants to be there every day, and I know there's a lot of kids from throughout all of Torrance County that go to that pool, so I would like for us to please consider allocating an amount to the town of Estancia for the pool. Certainly they've done their homework, they've submitted all of the paperwork, they've been at every meeting, and to prolong it, I mean, I don't know that those numbers they're not gonna change, we still have to make a decision. I mean, whether we wanna look at Moriarty's and say, how can we be fair, but Estancia was ahead of the game, so I would like to.
Madam Chair, I've spoke with the mayor when he first turned this letter in, and he was to speak with Ms. Viviano and to get her to rewrite the letter, and that still has not been done. The program is over now, so, it's not something that we really need to consider this year, that maybe they need to step up and get it done as Mayor Morella has. What I would like to propose is that, to simplify, we're at 113,000 over reserve. I would like to make a motion that we award Estancia 13,000, and that leaves us $100,000 in reserve.
I certainly would support that as well, except that you always get to pick the number, and it's like we just follow whatever you're saying.
I am the only male up here, besides Brandon. So, that's going to open up a can of worms.
Commissioner Tapia, do you have a comment on the number, on the dollar amount?
No, I would be in support of that.
Okay. Mayor, that's what we're looking at today, is at the 13,000.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Brummel?
I wish to speak on this on behalf of my community.
Mr. President, I should say.
Thank you. In Manzano, we have a lake, and we keep on telling the people that go there, the kids, mainly the tourists and people from around that area, that they can't swim there because it's too dangerous. Over all the years that have died, they don't understand that it's really deep and really dangerous. So consequently, I just want to support the mayor in his efforts and the county for keeping this program alive, so the kids can have somewhere that they can go swimming safely and guarded. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, great. So, Tracy, let's go on to the next.
Give it another later. So we're at 13,000.
Can we pick the next number?
I don't think you finished your motion.
Okay, so like I was saying earlier, as you increase expenditures, the reserve amount increases. So instead of leaving 100,000 on the table, we're at 97,000.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that.
You didn't get your round number, Lonnie, anyway.
No.
You were off. Let the record reflect.
I knew I was going to get it. Thank you, Tracy.
And commissioners, there was a project too that I know I have discussed with Commissioner Freiberger on occasion, and Tracy and I have discussed it, and Annette and I have discussed it, and we've discussed it with lots of the other staff at length. And I think that the fire departments desperately need administrative help, and I would propose an administrative assistant / purchasing officer for the fire departments.
Thank you. I thought we had approved that. Did we not? Or is it just not in the numbers?
I think we discussed it, but it's something, Madam Chair, we had worked with the fire departments, and I firmly believe that if we had somebody that was designated to where they could speak with the chiefs, all of the chiefs are on a volunteer basis. We have orders that come in and are left on the doorsteps of a fire station, and the chiefs or the personnel might not be there for 2 or 3 days, and it leaves it open for theft. Also, we have sometimes the mentality of the delivery people that one fire station serves everybody, and so they leave one order somewhere and it doesn't go, and they have no idea what the order is. So a good example is we have one fire station that has approximately 20 tarps that are still in boxes that are stacked, and they're still trying to find out who ordered them. And so the clerk / purchasing agent came about that I believe that we can save money by, if these chiefs had a central point of contact, that they could call in and say, we need 3 tarps. Then with the inventory control that this person would have, they could either shift inventory over to them, or they could wait until we could order it and buy a mass bulk instead of individual orders, especially in some of the fire equipment and some of the things that they need. I believe that the position over a period of 4 years or less would pay for itself.
And if I could just interject a little bit and remind the commission and those who are present that we have 5 fire districts currently in the county, but 4 of those districts have multiple stations, so that's 9 fire stations. And we have another fire district or another municipality who has asked us to take over their fire district. So that's 10, and that's a lot of state fire funds to keep track of, and a lot of purchases to make, and a lot of inventory to log in, and a lot of administrative issues to deal with. And we know that because we pick up the slack for a lot of that the fire marshal can't take care of on his own. There's just not enough time for it, excuse me. So if we had it figured out, Trace, help me, if we had a position at around $9 an hour, once you add in benefits, what are we looking at? As far as, we have a percentage.
33,000.
At one point, we did have a clerk.
With benefits.
So at one time, we did have a floating clerk, right, in the fire department?
We have a part-time clerk who requests purchase orders and pays bills for the fire department. There's not enough time for a part-time clerk for her to go through the training that would be required for her or someone else to move into that position and be a purchasing agent as far as inventorying and finding out what the departments need and communicating with the chiefs on a daily basis, because the chiefs, who are all volunteers, have a tendency to think that if they see they have $100,000 in their budget, they think they can spend $100,000 on what they want. And there's not always consequences because they're volunteers. So if it was somebody who is trained specially to deal with those issues, to make the orders, to take the inventory, to deliver the merchandise to the stations, and to keep track of the chiefs, it would take a full-time person, in my opinion.
That rate is gonna run between 25 and 30,000, depending on what type of insurance they choose, or if they don't choose any, so. I think that there's funding in this budget as it exists without, for that, without having to increase expenditures. It would not be, it's not budgeted in the general fund right now, so it has no impact on this reserve requirement for the overage.
Dorothy?
Would you be able to get that employee paid through the fire funds? Because they're the ones that have,
No.
You have to come from
You're
now.
not allowed to pay
Fire-
salaries from
Fire funds and fire excise tax do not allow salaries to be
For
paid.
salaries.
We can't even pay a stipend to the volunteers from either of those funds
Oh,
because
okay.
they're qualified as salaries.
yeah, that was my question, because they do have money in their funds.
Yes, and we have asked all those questions to the right people, but that's not allowed. That's why the commission funds the fire marshal, because he can't even be paid from fire funds.
Okay, so since this has to be approved, we don't have time to, we need to decide what we want to do on this issue. Would we like it to be considered this evening for this budget?
So you're saying that position would be $25,000?
Give or take, depending on benefits.
But the salary would only be, we're figuring $9 an hour?
The salary itself is only 18, but then you have to add in FICA and PARA and retiree health care and health benefits if they choose to take them.
Mr. Lopez? Or shall I say, Mr. Chairman?
I think we're going back to what was said over here. We need to get out of this mentality of $9 an hour. I mean, we want a certified mechanic with a CDL and 10 years experience to come work for Torrance County for $9 an hour. And we want to put the fiscal responsibility on this position for $9 an hour. I mean, I think a hard look at the budget needs to say, can we pay this person $15 an hour to bring them in, to bring somebody in that's qualified? Because you're going to want probably at least quite a bit of education, not a bachelor's degree in business administration or something to this effect, to be certified as a fiscal agent with the state. And then say we're going to offer you $9 an hour? I mean, we need to start changing this mentality of $9 an hour for our employees, because $9 an hour today, you can't go out and buy a house. You know, you can't buy your kids new school clothes. And to keep employees, I don't want to bring in somebody, a fiscal agent, with this type of responsibility, train them, certify them, so we can lose them to another county because we're only going to pay them $9 an hour. And I'm a conservative person, as you all know, but Jiminy Crickets, we don't pay people for what they're worth. And if this type of requirements to make them a fiscal agent and in charge of the finances of this fire department like this, in ordering and purchasing, we need to make sure we bring somebody that's qualified, $15 an hour, and make sure that we don't lose this person. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
I agree with Mr. Lopez, but I think we would have half of the road department blade operators apply for that position if there was a $15 an hour position. So we have a general area.
Steve wants to post.
They would have to be qualified.
And I encourage, if they qualify, then I would encourage everybody to apply.
Although I agree, I also disagree because we can always increase once the level of training gets there. I mean, this is a position that's gonna be learned over a period of time. I'd rather start at 9 and work them up. I mean, if they're capable of doing the job, than to just say, you know, let's give them 15
And I think that none of the administrative staff would argue that. I hate that we hire blade operators at $9 an hour and have to ask them to go get trained and certified. And we do have good benefits, but it's nothing in comparison to the other counties. I hate that our administrative staff comes in at $9, $10 an hour. And we've looked at ways to try to keep the equity with raises, because if 3-4 years ago, we gave a 10% raise to all employees. 10% raise to those at the topper end of the classifications is a good raise. But when you're making $9 or $10 an hour, it's still not a significant raise. So we've gotten some ideas that we're going to look at in the future. I know that some other counties have given an across-the-board $1,000, $1,500 per employee raise, and that helps keep some equality between the employees who have been here 20 years and the employees that have been here 5 years. So we're looking at those. We've looked at salary schedules from other counties, and we've got to start somewhere. We just don't know where to start because it would take a lot more than 97,000 to get us there, and that's carrying on from year to year. So, but we do acknowledge that, and nobody disagrees.
Okay, great. So again, we need to make a decision on this particular request as well, and it needs to be made this evening. So we're now at the table to make that decision. And thank you for everybody's comment.
I believe that we should have, what's my thoughts on it?
Commissioner Fabio,
At the 30?
What's that?
can you pick the number?
Yeah.
I'm banned from picking numbers anymore.
Tracy, you said 30, 25. If we were to put in 30, we would be safe.
It depends on what type of benefits that they take, but like I said, we did find some available money in another fund that doesn't impact the general fund, so we can, it can adjust, that budget can adjust, I believe, if there's higher benefits that we need to cover, then I think it can adjust.
Okay. Then I will throw out the dollar amount of 30,000 for that position.
I'm sorry.
With benefits? With benefits?
Yeah, I think the hourly rates.
Okay. Are there any other things that we need to consider before we can get this approved?
Do we need to make a motion?
Hold on.
I don't know that it requires individual motions for this. The budget's adopted by resolution, which is a motion.
And if she's plugging it into that and you guys approve it, then it doesn't require a motion.
Okay. So is there anything else that needs to be discussed?
I don't believe so. I don't know if you want to budget some money, some additional money in the general fund, in the commission budget for capital outlay, things that may arise. We could move it somewhere else as things come up as a cushion.
As far as capital outlay, I know that we have talked about the senior centers at some point, and, well, not the senior centers, I'm sorry, the community centers, and you have a senior center and you have a senior center, but the community center at Tahika looks so great. It's just, I invite everybody to go look at all of the hard work everybody's put into it. And I hate to ask for one more thing, but when I went to the community center to show somebody how great it looked, and we were in the kitchen, there were some rodent issues in the stove, and so it's a very, very old stove, and I would like to get it replaced. And I know there's a little bit of money in the budget for the community center. I know it doesn't make a lot of money, but at some point I would really like to get a better stove, even if it's used or, just that hasn't been inhabited by a creature.
The other thing now that we mentioned, capital outlay, I don't really know what the cost is. It's on later on in the agenda is the discussion of the time clock software. Regarding which way that goes, that software is gonna need to be replaced if we continue on with the time clock because it is slowly fading away, so we need to build something in so that we can replace that. We kind of looked, and until we actually pick and use the components of the software you're looking at, they will give you a price.
Okay. But that's something else that needs to be considered.
And I know that one of my chronic concerns is that we don't have money in the budget for regular building maintenance other than this building and judicial. So I always like to keep a little bit of money in capital outlay building improvements in the commission budget so that it can be used for emergencies at other facilities, be it the health clinics in Estancia or Moriarty, or the public health office here, or the senior centers, or whichever building that it becomes.
Right, and major capital items, when we talk about capital outlay, are items that cost over $1,500. If it's something that's gonna be less than that, we can always move the money to an appropriate line item for that expenditure.
Okay. Well, I know the stove would not be anywhere near that, but I think it's very important. I know Joy's been an advocate for many years on trying to have some kind of a building maintenance budget, so what is it at right now? And
We're at 97,000, but as we increase those expenditures, that number does shrink, so.
If you look in the expenditure section of your budget, you'll see, I think what you were asking is what we have in capital outlay now. And I didn't put anything into y'all's budget for capital outlay building improvements. It's at 0.
I think we should start. I mean, certainly we need to start putting money there because when the dishwasher breaks and then we have to put pressure on Joy to put pressure on aging to somebody send us a dish, you know, that there, we need something there.
We usually do in the past, that's kind of where we hide it from you guys. So that if we have an emergency, we can pay for it. So if it's there, I would ask you guys to put 15 or 20,000 in it, just so that we have reserve. And like Tracy said, if we needed it somewhere else, it can be moved around, but at least it's in there for those types of expenditures. Because if we have a roof issue at a building, or if we have a criminal or judicial get mad as he's leaving the courtroom and kick a hole in the wall, we're responsible for fixing all that. And those are all things that have happened before. And the senior centers all have problems that have been around for a long time. Tahiti Community Center is really not a unique situation in Torrance County. We have building problems all the way around, and we have to address those somehow.
I think that 20,000 is a good start, and we need to have some dollars set aside there, or they're just going to keep deteriorating.
I agree.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so if we put in 20,000, then our overage drops to 72,000.
Yes, Mr. Cedillo? Gotta come to the podium. No, I didn't make Dorothy do it, and someone's going to slap me on the hand later.
Just a question, Tracy. We had 97, and you take 20 out, and it brings it down to 72?
Because as the expenditure column increases, the reserve requirement increases. So we're
Okay.
required to have more on hand as the expenditures go up. That's why I always encourage the departments not to budget things that they know they're not going to spend or projects they know they can't complete, because it drives the reserve up to a point that at some point we have issues meeting reserve. But last year, we ended at right around $1 million. This year, we ended right around 1.3. So
Okay, thank you.
Lonnie, do you understand we have a 3/12 reserve requirement in the general fund?
Yes,
Okay, and 1/12 in the road fund
yes.
that DFA requires us to have in there.
Okay, Mr. Nick?
County Commission, thanks for this opportunity. I'm glad Joey brought this up. One huge concern we've been having, and I spoke with Leonard about it as well, is our parking lot is in desperate need of some maintenance. So just keep that in mind. I'm not making a request this year, but we spec'd it out, and the road department would obviously like chip seal it. We just have to buy some material and some oil, designate a time frame on the weekend and do it. So just keep that in the back of your mind, because I believe on this north side, there is no pavement anymore. Sheriff's Department is nothing but a pothole every other 20 steps. And I've spoken to some of the old timers here in town, and they can't tell me that this parking lot's ever been repaved. So I believe that asphalt that's been there has been there since 1964-ish, when the building was built. So just for future recommendations, we desperately need some maintenance on the parking lot. Thank you.
It's a good point on safety as well. Thank you, Nick. Okay, what else?
that's all I can think of. Anything else, Joe? I don't know if we want to budget. I mean, you can budget more. I don't know if we want to budget something in. What equipment do we have that belong to the commission?
We need a backhoe and a loader in the road department, and some of that money could go towards helping with the lease payment on those. That hasn't been a request that's made, but it's something that I know we've all had in the back of our minds that is necessary.
We need that more than the water truck?
I don't know that we have a problem with our water truck. I think our water truck is fine, but
I don't know, I was just thinking that, I thought I had, Martina told me that there was a problem with the water truck, but it's working good? Okay.
Do we have to budget it? I mean, can we
You
just
don't,
leave it there?
but if we need it, it's gonna take resolutions and DFA approval to get it into the budget at that point. It's a little bit of a waiting game if something happens and we need it.
It's better to put it somewhere. And we could, I know when we've had excess before, those capital outlay items, the 611, 612, 617, 618, we put money in there because that's the commission budget. It basically encompasses anything that we need to buy, and it can be moved around at that point, and it's put into the budget. It does drive the reserve up, but
I would be remiss not to remind everyone on my way out, even though some people call me a lame duck, if you have some great property that you can build a new county facility on at some point that would require an architect to start drawing out, I just think it's a good vision to have. You know, thinking out loud, I've always thought of there being a great new facility down there for Torrance County and possibly the town of Estancia being able to grow into a building of this size is always something that I've, always thought about. So I hope that just please don't lose focus of that vision, because this building is really in need of a lot of work and it's just going to continue to grow. So,
Nick, Leonard, do you have a dollar amount of what it would take for the parking lot?
We thought about it last year and we forgot to, it just slipped our mind because everybody was so busy. I think this year with the price of oil, it came to about 30,000. Yes, it's oil, the chip seal, the time, effort, material hauling it. Because it's a pretty big, it's a full city block minus the footprint of the building. And the biggest concern is obviously, like I said, over here by the sheriff's department. Front's holding up pretty good, the trees are causing some issues. The back we've tried to maintain as best as possible because that's our only true handicap area, but this north side is, it's starting to, it's just dirt and potholes. I think what me and Leonard came up with 30,000.
If we move the money into 612, 617, and 618, are you saying that we can move that anywhere we want later? Without, so we can put it back, just to kind of have as a savings for emergencies that come up, to where if something comes along and the price of oil drops down, then we can do the parking lot for 20,000 instead of 30, then we could do that.
it just makes it cleaner too for you and saves time on having resolutions later.
I would say that we equally divide it into those three groups.
How much of what's left do you want to budget?
Of the 72,
Well, it's probably not gonna be 72 once we start putting them in there. So I would say that you're good at if you look at 50 or 40.
Okay.
in that
Or
area.
25 again.
25.
Well, I don't think you need to really put anything in vehicles, because I think we've really addressed vehicles. I think all vehicles are good now, unless, because a backhoe would go under equipment, correct?
Well, I'm saying that we can put it in any three.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to go to vehicles.
You can put it on building improvements, you can put it all
Could we
wherever
put-
you want, because it can be moved.
You can transfer
Can we put 20 in each one and still balance out?
Well, I don't think we have any land improvements that we need to do. That would be like major,
But again, we can move it if we wanted to, correct?
yes, but it would be like.
Yeah, this is just a place to put
property
it.
purchase or-
Okay. Could we be in agreement to put 20 in each?
I come up with
Back of the room says 15 and 15. Just saying.
Thank you. Okay, so now we've, I think, anything else?
Are we going 20 and 20?
Yes.
So now we're 22,000 over reserve. And our reserve is, requirement is still under 975,000. The budget's a work in process. It'll be different tomorrow. Somebody will come in my office and say, we need to change this because I just found out something else. So it's gonna change all the time, so.
What, do we need to put the 22 somewhere? Okay, okay.
Well, I think it's been a great, let me see, this isn't a budget workshop, a great budget hearing, a lot of great comments from the audience and from the staff, and I think that we put together a good budget. So at this time, I'd like to call for a motion to approve Resolution 2012-26, adoption of the 2012-13 operating budget. Thank you. There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.